Well, we appreciate you guys joining us today. We will get cooking. I'm gonna welcome everybody here. I am the host for Gov Brief here today. We have Rodolfo Lavaque.
That's right.
There we go. I'm getting it. Rodolfo Lavaque. He's the CEO of TPM, and we're glad that you guys decided to join us. We have a bunch of folks that decided that they wanted to check this out for implementing the President's Performance Management Framework. We want to specifically welcome folks from NOAA as well as NASA, because you have a little history with NASA. So on behalf of that, I got need my space mug. Oh, fantastic. We just want to welcome you guys. A lot of interest from HHS folks as well as DHS. So we're glad you decided to make it. Real quick session agenda. We'll get to some introductions to Rodolfo and why he's here. We will be reviewing the Presidential Memorandum M-21-22 and talking about the performance framework and get you some real life case studies with NOAA. That's why the NOAA logo is up there. And we'll get to some of your questions and as well as procurement options and some things that we can do for you after this. Real quick, briefing controls. If you haven't been on a Zoom and you've been living under a rock for the past year, you can control many things. If you open up on the right-hand side, you have view options for a side-by-side mode. If you don't like the way that Rodolfo is dressed today, you can make him disappear altogether. And there you have it. So the session handouts, I have to do these manually. I'll probably do this multiple times throughout this because there's only one way to do this. You can't do actual documents here. So we have these so that you can link to them and download. They are in the chat now. And I will add those later again because a lot of times folks come in a little bit late and they don't show up. So please let me know that you can get to those and that actually works for you to be able to link to those. And we'll make sure if they don't, that we do it again. So we want to just welcome you again. We have Christina, the best briefing ever, coming in. She said, Christina says, if I can retire sooner because of it. Well, I don't know about that part, Rodolfo. What do you think?
No, sorry,
not sure we're going to be able to make that one, Christina. But and Carlette with HRSA, if it's implemented, not sure we're going to be able to make that one either because it's a little bit more complex than that. But I think we will get to IVs, which they're tangibles that we can incorporate into delivery of safe, quality veteran care. I'm certain that some of the components you'll be able to use today. For Kim, we can cover everything in the time allotted. Well, that depends on how fast Rodolfo talks. And then Michael, if they deliver the key points and no fluff, Rodolfo, no fluff. All right. And Robin says, if we can get a day of admin leave for attending, man, we have some comedians from the VA. And William, the bar is so high for William, he just learns anything. All right. So there you go. So for Kim, please address this. Are there any case studies for successful U.S. government agency business transformations? Rodolfo, do we have some of those for them?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about that. And then change managed performance criteria. Fantastic. We're going to get to that. Circular A11 for Robin. I do believe that we do have that as well. And Mark from IHS, verifying vendor qualifications. Always an important thing to do. Wouldn't you say, Rodolfo?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would agree. So there you have it. So participation is easy. So you can raise your hand, you can chat, you can do the Q&A. Somebody already popped something in there, so we do appreciate that. And I will make sure that I read that momentarily. Real quick, this is a disclaimer so you guys can participate. This is provided to us by GSA. So it's not an endorsement or participation in this is not an engagement by personnel, is not an indication or endorsement or commitment to purchase from any vendor, including you, Rodolfo. So there you have it. We have to say that in order for them to be able to say anything. And as far as saying anything, now's your chance to actually participate for the first time. So why are you here today? I want to learn more about the President's Performance Management Framework. A lot of people, you can pick as many as you want, by the way. I'm responsible for organizational transformation. I'm a program manager, I'm a procurement officer, or my boss made me come. So there's got to be some Weisenheimers out there that are going to pick that last one. So while we're at it, let's talk about who you are, Rodolfo, while they're doing that. Now, you've been around for a little while. You have some experience in this world. In fact, you might have a little bit of experience with this organization named as NASA. You can talk about that. So tell us about you.
Yeah, so I was born as an industrial engineer. Basically, I say that because really my mind and my passion is there in the engineering field, in solving problems, right? I got an MBA, a master's in finance. Um, I got my project management professional certification from the PMI 16 years ago, and I taught at the PMI as well, project management, getting certified in PMP. I've been participating in GAO conferences, and I am a member of the Center of Excellence of Programmatic Analysis at NASA. Um, and and really, I also have a certificate in organizational change management from Georgetown, and I've been basically doing all of the things that we're going to be talking right now for about 25 years. And not only doing it, this is something that I feel passionate. This is what keeps me awake at night. This is what, solving problems for the federal agency, and in particular in organizational transformation, managing projects, tracking performance, figuring out ways to do things, faster, cheaper, and better, is what keeps me awake at night. So that's who I am. Oh, and I also put there that I love martial arts, because I think it's a way of, it requires improving yourself constantly, and that's kind of who I am.
So don't mess around with Rodolfo. That's all I got to say. Just don't mess around. All right. You guys been around since 2014. You're based in Maryland. And so, like you mentioned, you have a lot of experience in organizational transformation and helping these guys. How much money did you help these guys get?
So I work in two huge programs. When I say huge, are $9 billion. I worked on the James Webb Space Telescope, and I developed the joint confidence level analysis of cost, risk, and schedule to figure out when it was going to launch at the moment that Congress wanted to cancel the program. So that study was vetted by GAO, and basically the program is going to launch now. That study was in 2010, and the program is still alive. So
9 billion, folks.
Yes,
9 billion. Awesome, fantastic. And you are 8A, and you have your GSA, which is fantastic as well. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes. We're here because of the Presidential Memorandum, and especially how it reestablishes Part 6 of Circular A11. And that goes to the Federal Performance Framework, which is why we're here today to talk exactly about the Federal Performance Framework. So tell us what this means, Rodolfo, because you're in the thick of it. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so, and I want to draw everybody's attention to two particular areas of the Part 6, which is a performance cycle and 15 standards that Part 6 states. So basically, this memorandum restates Part 6 of the performance framework. Mm-hmm. And let's go and talk to the first one, to the performance cycle.
Sounds good.
So I also like simple things. I would say that the whole A11 is a very long and detailed circular that specifies all kinds of things. So I simplified the whole process in a couple of charts. So the performance cycle basically is made of 4 core elements. The planning element, then monitoring, analysis, review, and performance analysis, and and the reporting. From there, it has a 4th cycle that is a loop back to learning and decision making based on the outcomes that we just learned from that process, and that applies to all the elements in the federal government. It goes from the agencies to the portfolios, to the programs and the projects. It's just it goes in progression depending where you are at. So when we say planning, basically what we talk about is developing the baseline. And because we're talking about program, portfolios, agency, basically this baseline is made of cost, scope, and schedule. When we talk about the analyzing the performance and analyzing the monitoring and controlling of the execution of the programs, what we talk is figuring out how things are deviating primarily. So when we analyze performance, we do things like analyzing the variance. In this case, we have a chart of cost, and we use elements like S charts type of graphics. When we try to figure out predictive performance, and when I talk about predictive performance, what we do is we try to understand how the program will behave in time based on the variances or the analysis that we made as of today. And we use tools like earned value management, schedule risk analysis, cost risk analysis, or in the most complex case of the situations, we have joint confidence level analysis. So the real secret for having effective performance or predictive performance is to model a good baseline. And how to get that sounds simple, and all of these explanations sound simple until we start going into the the details. So the challenge of modeling a good baseline is incorrectly modeling the work plan to meet the scope, to integrate cost, schedule, and the scope, and to create the basis of estimation, including things like uncertainty.
How do you know about uncertainties? How does that happen?
Well, and yes, uncertainty you estimate in general with a range, right? So normally you would go and you would put a set number of days. If you, for instance, if you are doing let's say a schedule, right, and you try to estimate the duration, you would go and you put when you think that the task is going to get accomplished. But the task could get accomplished faster, sooner, could get accomplished, in close to time, and then later. And how you estimate when, the number that you are going to put or what probabilities you have of accomplishing that date is based on those uncertainties, right? The unknowns that could happen. Again, it could be based on performance of the task, right? And if you put a subject matter expert, the task could be done faster. If you put there someone that is just starting the task, it could take longer. Yep. There's a lot of variables that affect.
There's a lot of variables, and we'll get some of those. And I love the fact that your risks include unknowns, and that's a tough thing to be able to determine. Is what you don't
exactly. And when you include risks, right? And so let's go to the next slide, because we're going to talk in particular about one case today, and it's organizational transformation, and we're going to focus on organizational transformation. And I wanted to, I've been working for a very long time, and I'm a subject matter expert in the area of space flight and space flight systems. So I want to ask here, what people think that is more complex,
going to
or that has more uncertainty and risks, a space flight project or a transformation?
Yep. So a complex space project, creating a consensus among senior government leaders, or you're going to take the fifth because you don't want to be accused of anything. Not that it would ever happen in your agency. This never happens in your agency, of course, right? Right, Rodolfo?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. We're going to go to the case study of what happened when
Yep.
we are one of the case studies.
Yeah, and I think most of people get it. You can see most of people get it. Like creating consensus amongst government leaders, especially today. Do we ever agree on anything? Just asking. Okay, and we got a couple people taking the fifth, which is great because we just recorded the fact that you took it. I'm just kidding.
Excellent. Yes.
All right, there
Yes.
you go. So we'll let you guys
and
out.
now I'm going to show you a couple of examples. But basically,
Yeah.
really, we've been collecting tons of information about.
There you go. There's the results. So there you
go. We've been collecting tons of information at NASA and I would say the technical and technology development agencies, and we know we even have a process to mature technology that is very accurate, and in a lot of cases we have a lot of data at least.
Yeah. So,
but at the same time,
the whole thing revolves around human behavior, though, right?
At the same time, every time that I have to do organizational change management, there is always the human behavior is always underestimated, right? Always. So the uncertainty about human behavior has been always underestimated. We, everybody thinks that they could do things faster. They question when I say that they have to account for things like disagreements, and they are like, no, that's
no disagreements.
You're trying to sell something to us, right? But so I want to go to the next slide, Dave, please.
So first of all, technology has never been the challenge. It's really getting all those folks. So here's this will bring it home.
Yes. I wanted to bring this example because at this point we are very efficient in engineering and re-engineering processes. We map them. We can create several pages of processes. We put our thinking, but normally the thinking process takes relatively short time.
Yeah.
So we re-engineer a process. I'm gonna give you an example here. This is real life. I don't want to give the names, but
we're not dropping anybody's names.
This is real case. We re-engineer a process in 2 days, and getting stakeholders agreements took 2 years. 2 years.
2 years.
And
that will never happen in your organization. For everybody that's on here, yours is clean.
Yeah, and we do, of course, we didn't spend 2 years sitting there waiting for agreement, right? We work on many other things, but I just wanted to take this, this case because it's a very representative case. Normally, the inspirational part and the improving things takes much shorter time than the bringing consensus, and that's also part of our work, right? Because
part of you better build it into your process.
Exactly, we build it into our process. It doesn't do any good to anybody that we come up with a process that then is not going to get implemented.
Yeah,
right.
I think that was one of the concerns. Who brought that up earlier? Let me see. That was Charlotte from the Children's Bureau. She says it gets implemented. Good job, Charlotte. All right.
Yes.
So
yes,
what's harder, performance?
So going back to the to the discussion about performance and predictive performance. At this point, I think we covered that at least performance, which is a variance against a baseline, is relatively easier than predictive performance, which will require estimating the project's behavior, right? And that also requires things like risks, uncertainties, much more in detail, like looking into the future, how the project will behave. It could require those elements. So and that's this is exactly right. This slide says that uncertainty and risk of human behavior is in a lot of cases the element that is most underestimated. Yep. So going back to the cycle of performance that is described in part 6. The last part is a closed loop to learn and to apply corrective actions and figuring out what those corrective actions could be. And at that point, you either replan or um, or figure out what, the scoping. There's several mechanisms for how you would apply those corrective actions.
And I think you built it in, is that closing that loop and then building in those corrective actions so that you actually can then plan. You have to replan and then move that back through the cycle again so that it actually makes the change. When you implement it, you can measure that change. Does that make sense, guys?
That's absolutely correct.
So let's talk about the second point that you had, which is the 15 standards. So what does that all mean?
So part 6 also mentions or brings back, right, the reinstatement of part 6. OMB and jointly with several agencies and key stakeholders had developed a set of common principles-based government-wide program management standards that the agencies can apply. Right. So here is a list of those 15 program management standards, and if you see, starting from top left, we have their change management, communications, planning and stakeholders engagement, contracting and acquisition management, customer service, evaluation, financial management, human capital management, information management, performance management, and the like, right? The management of portfolios, program.
And everybody can see these. So now that you all know exactly what you have to do to meet these are all the standards that you have to meet. Now the question is, now that you know them all, how are you guys doing with all those So what is your biggest issue with transformational challenges, right? So creating, you can choose as many as you want, by the way. That's another thing here. Creating a realistic baseline and tracking performance, managing stakeholders. Everybody should pick that one. And then efficient communication. Everybody should pick that too. And defining future systems, defining governance structure, understanding and managing the requirements. A whole bunch in there. Let us know what you got there, because we're the case study, which, by the way, we will be covering that as was requested, is a real life case study with our folks at NOAA, right?
Absolutely.
And you'll see that most of what you applied, by the way, in this case study fits, or at least the what you had insight over and influence over has to deal with most of the elements that were in here, right? So let's talk about that.
So we have been implementing and developing best practices and working on all these different areas for many years. I was working on all these elements before I founded TPM, and I started TPM with that passion and vision to cover, basically to help the federal government on these performance management areas. When we went to assist in this last project for organizational change management to NOAA, we applied about 12 of those 15. So that's why we thought that this was a good case to bring and to share with with everybody. In our experience, when we go and we do program or business transformation, there are certain core transformation objectives that normally the agencies want to do, and these are the not a full list, but at least the majority of them is what covers 90% of what we encounter. Now, in general, agencies want to migrate to the cloud. They want to improve the way that they manage their portfolio. So they require things like moving and using agile project management versus waterfall. They want to be more efficient business. So that for that they want to re-engineer business processes. That's what we call the little e, because they also want to be a more effective business, and that's what we call the big E, because effective relates to orienting all the business structure and the processes to the strategic goals, right? Efficient is doing better what they've been doing, but effective is more aligning to the strategy, and that's a deeper, right? The biggie. And another core transformation objectives that we have seen is to change the way that they manage the business, and in that case, I call that to adapt our governance model.
Yep. And that's the easy one, right?
Again, yeah, that's the easiest one. Reorganizing in the federal government is probably one of the toughest challenges.
You're absolutely right. And in this, oh, by the way, I just put that back into the chat where this is part of the handouts for the session. You have the TPM business transformation model, and Greg, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
All right, pop on up here. Let's introduce Greg. Hey, Greg.
Afternoon. Afternoon, everybody.
Loving the guitars in the background. For those of you who missed it earlier, I got mine back here. So Greg, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then talk about this transformation model, what it means.
So I kind of split my professional career into two chunks: 20 years in the federal government, and 20 years in industry and business. And during the 20 years in the federal government, it was 25 years in the federal government. I spent the first 20 years in the Air Force as an officer in the Air Force doing technology, computer scientist, and software engineering the entire time. And then the other 5 years of that 25 years of government service I was spent as the Chief Information Officer of the United States Senate. And you may be wondering, what kind of technology do they do at the United States Senate? They actually have a lot, and I had a pretty good sized budget there, about $150 million a year and about 500 folks, and was able to basically do technology for the entire Senate, which is more than just 100 senators. We had about 12,000 folks nationwide when you take all their state offices and all their staffs, et cetera. So it's a fairly large organization. And then the other 20 years of my professional career I've spent in business, starting companies, running companies, working for companies, doing a variety of things. But I just want to talk about three, just to kind of give you a sense of where I've been, three opportunities that I had for enterprise transformation during my federal service part of my professional career. And I have dozens more, obviously, in the business side. Because when you're starting companies or running companies or working in companies at the C-level, you get lots of opportunities for enterprise transformation. And sometimes you actually drive it. And sometimes it works out well, and sometimes it doesn't work out so well. But that's a different story.
No, that makes
but in my federal career, in my service to the government, the first one occurred at NATO. I was in the Air Force, and I was stationed at a major NATO command as a chief scientist. And when I got there, they had no automation at all. They had telephones, and they had gray steel file cabinets, and that was it, desks. And I got there, and I came from the Pentagon, where I had all kinds of systems and email and all kinds of things. So this was in 1994, basically. I got there, and I needed email, and I needed the ability to use a computer and do the kind of things that I was used to doing. So I put together a plan, and we built a network. We built a commands-wide network, and that was an enterprise transformation. They went from going completely paper-based, clerks running papers around in files, to doing things electronically, and that was an amazing enterprise transformation in an organization that at that time consisted of 16 countries. And if you think it's tough getting executive leaders in a federal, an American government organization to get along, try getting them to get along from 16 different countries where some of them aren't exactly friends to start with.
I don't know what the problem is, Greg. Yeah. Everybody seems to get along all the time, man.
Herding cats big time. So the second one then was a few years later. I was back in the United States, back at the Pentagon again, and I found myself in the Air Force as the lead software engineer. And the enterprise transformation in front of me was one day I got called into the Secretary of Defense's office, and he said, "We just got a report card from the Horn Commission, and we've got a D when it comes to Y2K. So guess what? You're now in charge of year 2000 for the entire Air Force." That was an enterprise transformation because, in fact, at the time, we thought we were faced with an existential threat, right? I mean, all of our systems were going to die.
For those of us who weren't around then, we thought the world was going to end.
Yeah, you remember the hype, and and that actually now people say, "Oh, well, that was no big deal. That was a speed bump or whatever." It actually was a big deal, and a lot of folks did a lot of work to make that more smooth than we thought it was going to be, and it worked out okay. So that was another great opportunity. And the third one was at the United States Senate, and we went through a few there while I was there. And again, the organizational aspects of that are very interesting because the Senate's like 100. Each senator is autonomous, and each senator controls their data, and they own their data, and they own their systems. And as a CIO, you get to try to help them manage that and improve the technology. So, we transformed to unified communications. We transformed from paper-based operations to an intranet where everything was online.
Yeah.
So we went through a few things like that. At any rate, throughout these types of experiences, we began to assemble a kind of a list of best practices and things that seem common to all of those enterprise transformations. And those are the things that you see here in this transformation model that we've created. And so at the core of the model is the core transformation objective. And on the previous slide, what Rodolfo showed you were some examples of typical core transformation objectives. One of them was, we need to become more efficient. We need to be more effective. At the top of the stack there, migrating to the cloud can create a great opportunity in an agency for enterprise transformation. So at the core of this model is whatever the core objective happens to be. And then as you move out from the core of the model, you see on the four sides, there are the project management type aspects of it. On the top, from project management, from creating a project management organization to dealing with risk. How do you do it? We've had great success with agile project management. It's akin to agile software development or agile systems development. You actually manage the projects in a similar way. And then even less abstract than that, or the components of those things have to do with, the things that are typical to project management, like schedule, budget, staffing, operations, and security.
Yep. And we're going to go we need to get into the one with
yeah, let's stay on that slide for just a minute if we could.
Okay.
Go back, please. Okay, down at the bottom, you see the more operational aspects of it. So there's typically some sort of a concept of operations, and there's typically some architecture that goes along with enterprise transformation. And then you can see the more abstract or the less abstract manifestations of that down below. And then to the left, there's always a people and a cultural aspect of these. And that has to do with the governance structure and the best practices around governance and how it's organized and how it's set up and how it politically operates. Also, you learn about configuration management. Configuration management is more than just dealing with tracking changes in a system, for example. You can have that in an organization. And then on the right side, there's the process aspect of it. So, if you've got how the projects are managed, the operational aspect and the organization and the governance, and then how are the processes, how did they operate and how will they operate following the transformation? So we did this, we took this model to NOAA, and I think that's the case study we want to talk about here.
Yep, that's exactly right. I appreciate that, Greg. And as you you think about this from your perspective, there's huge challenges in any transformation, right?
Always.
So let's talk about what NOAA did. Who wants to take the lead on that? Rodolfo, you want to take it?
Yeah, let me take it here, and Greg, feel free to chime in anytime right, that you have any comments.
Yeah.
So this was a project where our client was NOAA. The NOAA Nestis. Nestis is the side of NOAA that does weather science with satellites. And their big challenge that they had here was that they wanted to migrate to the commercial cloud. And for that, they asked TPM to support initially. We developed the architectural framework, concept of operations, and the business processes, among other things. We had 3 tasks, but these were, primarily our first task that I want to focus on the discussion. So the core transformation objective was that we needed to migrate to the cloud, and we performed all the aspects of our business transformation model. And Greg explained, all the layers of complexity of what that meant. But basically, I want to focus on those things that we just discussed. So, in a nutshell, our biggest challenge, and Dave, if you want to go to the next slide, the commercial or the transition to the commercial cloud was not so much a technology challenge that it was an institutional challenge. And I'm gonna, show next when we first accomplished developing the architecture and the concepts of operations. That's in our playbook that falls into the systems engineering category. Very, I would say, we had a lot of fun. It was relatively easy for everybody to accept and to live with. And then our next task was to develop the governance structure. And at that point, we provided, they asked us to provide the most technically efficient organizational structure and organizational governance structure, and we did. And then that drove to another task, basically, while the government or while NOAA was looking for finding some consensus. They asked us to model all their processes for what they agreed, not the most efficient organization, but really the one that applied more to their organization, which that's a reality, right? A lot of times it is what the organization is ready to transform into, not necessarily what Amazon would provide as what is the ideal PMO or the ideal organization, right? So then if we want to hit next. Yeah. So we basically re-engineered all the business processes based on what was more efficient for Nestis.
Yeah.
And the result, what you are seeing, what we're displaying here is a set of some of the processes. In this case, we model a hierarchical functional. We did a hierarchical functional decomposition of the organization, the governance that made sense for Nestis. This model include people, processes, technologies, and we also model a temporal overlay of the different functions with part of the architecture. So it was let's say, that is an example of where the 3 elements of project management, systems engineering, and organizational change applied to the model that we have come to solve a problem that was tailored to the client, that originally was not a canned product that we could have just stuffed and fit into anybody in any organization. Yeah. And in my mind, that's what happens most of the time, right?
Rodolfo, yes. I would just want to add one little thing there.
Yes.
In that model, in that layered hierarchical model, it touches virtually every single one of those 15 performance measurement aspects.
Yes, it does.
Somewhere in that model.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Yes.
So the key takeaways from what you did with NOAA, the integrated experience that you had, and the engineering, the organizational change management through business transfer, all those pieces that you talked about, and you had it overlaid people, processes, technologies, all that piped in there. And technologies was the easiest of all, right?
Excellent. So that's absolutely right, Dave. What I just said before, that the integrated. So basically, in this case, we applied all the integration of all the 12 elements that we mentioned at the beginning of the 15 elements on part six, or and at the same time what Greg mentioned then afterwards, which is that core transformation model. The TPM transformation model encompasses all of the 15 elements.
Well, we do appreciate that. And I'm going to ask this one question. A lot of folks already responded with this. If you did, that's great. If not, let us know when you expect an organizational transformation requirement. And we're going to get to questions. If you have any, you can pop them open. You can do the chat. You can raise your hand. You can do the Q&A, and we'll keep that pumping. So we definitely want to make sure that we get whatever you need out of this, because as we do these briefings, the whole idea is to help you get to where you would like to go. But we really do appreciate you being here. And I don't see any questions here yet in the chat. So we're going to get on to the next thing. There's two things that we want to make sure that you know about. We said it earlier that you are not obligated to purchase from any vendor on any of these briefings. However, if you would like to engage with Rodolfo and his crew at TPM, you can. You guys are 8A, right?
Yes. And
you have a GSA contract.
Absolutely. There.
And then if you need any other types of relationships, hub zone or service disabled, you have partners that you can run those through and work together. But you are welcome to reach out to Rodolfo directly and his team. You can do, and you happen to have some pretty good past performance and experience, right?
That's correct.
Just a little bit, right? Since over your time. Next week, you will get an email that will have the briefing presentation, the session docs, which are also included here, but you can download, which includes the capabilities. You also get a link to the video. So if there's any additional information that you missed, if you came in a little bit late, you'll have access to that, as well as the ability to do one-on-one meetings with Rodolfo and his team. So we do appreciate that. I'm going to end this poll right now. So we appreciate you guys answering those pieces and trying to get you out of here a little bit behind on our 40 minutes, but we do our best to be able to do that. And we wanted to say thank you for joining us today. Very, very much appreciated that you guys decided to spend your time with us. And you can reach out to Rodolfo directly right there, including, is that your cell number, Rodolfo?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
That's my direct number.
That's a problem. And Greg, we want to thank you, man. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your service and for all that you've done. Great wealth of knowledge from Greg and what he's done, especially in the Air Force and serving as a Senate. Senate CIO, is that what you said?
I was the first CIO at the United States Senate, yes.
The first, not just a CIO, the first
Yep.
CIO.
All right, thank you, Dave. Thank you for having us.
Hey, yeah, it's great. Thanks for the great information. You can always tell when somebody knows what they're doing, and we do appreciate you guys joining us. And be looking for that email next week with the recap. We want to make sure we keep you informed. Please let us know if there's anything else we can do for you, and we will be glad to help any way that we can. Right, Rodolfo?
Absolutely, we're here to help.
That's right. All right, guys. Thanks much. Have a great rest of the week.